Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. I am your host, Mike Jokum. Jess and Matt are joining me tonight as we have some fun IndyCar things to discuss. But guys, first, before we get started, Matt kind of has an idea of what my secret question here is, but I'm going to change it from F1. So, Jess and Matt, you have to pick somebody who's an IndyCar driver to cook your Thanksgiving feast for you. Who do you trust the most to cook your Thanksgiving feast, or your IndyCar feast?
Does it have to be a current driver?
Yes.
Okay. Simon Pagenaud, and we're having crepes.
Ooh, okay.
What kind of Thanksgiving feast is that?
Hey, it doesn't have to be traditional. This is 2020.
All right, well...
Can't argue that.
I'm going to have Elio Castroneves come over, and after he cooks my meal, he can help me do my taxes.
Did not see that one coming.
Nope, I appreciate it.
Hit a home run.
Oops.
I feel like there's no point in even giving an answer.
Mike, we gotta
hear.
We gotta hear yours.
I was gonna go with Alex Rossi because he's a big time into the smoked meats with the smoker out back of his house and everything like that. So I feel like he could probably cook a pretty mean turkey right now.
Well, then you're gonna get into the debate of like, is a taco a sandwich or something along the way while he's stuffing the turkey or
That's fine. He's got good taste in alcohol,
that.
so like I'm sure I'd be okay with whatever debate he wants to debate.
Yeah, it's true. Who's like Santino's got Big Machine vodka. I feel like he should be on someone's invite list.
Mine.
Yep.
I call it.
List. Well, on that note, now that we've gotten some jabs in at Elio Castroneves, did want to send our condolences to Corey McClish's family. He was an Andretti mechanic who passed away this week. So thoughts and well wishes are with his family. And also on a sad note, Jeffrey Billows, who is the director of medical services for the AMR safety team, underwent surgery for a rare and aggressive cancer today. So thoughts are with him and his family. Hopefully he's able to recover from whichever cancer is currently ailing him.
Hopefully he came through surgery fine and everything looks good. Last I saw, surgery was going well, but I never saw the end results. So hopefully everything works out for him. And yeah, thoughts and prayers with Corey McClish's family and also his racing family.
Yeah, hopefully the doctor comes out okay and we see him in a paddock sometime soon. And then with Corey, I think it's incredibly telling to see some of the stories shared by a lot of the people within Andretti Autosport over the past week. Most notably, Zach Veach had a great story about him. So just wishing his family the best during this difficult time.
On a positive note, to turn things around, Alex Zanardi, did you guys read about him? He got moved to a different hospital. He is now, they're calling him stable. Didn't really give a whole lot of details on what that means, but he has been transferred to a different hospital. He's no longer in the ICU, and they are going to start working on his recovery.
Yeah, that's really good news, and I want to caution the average person at home that, we may not get too many updates. I think we went through something with Robert Wickens where we were incredibly spoiled to get a lot of updates, and we've talked about that several times in the show. Their family may not be giving us too many updates or videos or social media posts or whatnot, so we just kind of have to take what we can get, and getting the news that he is in stable condition is really good. So that's a lot of positives there.
Happy to hear that. On other happy news, Tony Kanaan. He is the driver for the oval rounds in the number 48 car this year. So I guess this was not particularly surprising at all, which we'll dive into further. But what do you guys think about Kanaan to Ganassi, or back to Ganassi?
The back to part is the kind of shocker, I think, just because that's pretty rare for Chip to do. But I'm glad he did, because I think that having TK there to kind of work with Jimmy Johnson and get him used to the car, help them set it up. I would imagine he's going to be helping on that front. I think that'll be good for both drivers. And I think that we'll see some good things out of that 48 car this season.
Yeah, I imagine him hitting like a Frank Heady type role in the road courses to help Johnson out, plus Dario's there, plus all the other great people within the organization will be there to assist Johnson. I think Kanaan fits the role well. I just am a little concerned because his last season with Ganassi was, if we're being honest, pretty brutal. And I'm wondering what kind of, he had a couple decent showings with Foyt, which is the second worst team or third or first, depending how you look on it, team in IndyCar. So we couldn't expect a whole lot. So I just am wondering how up to speed he's going to be at Ganassi, given that he hasn't had a really prodigious oval effort in a long time, 4 years.
Well, he had the 500 in 2018, Jess, was it, where he led a bunch some laps with Foyt before he crashed?
Yeah, as I say, then he hit the wall. So
yeah.
He looked good until it was going great until it wasn't.
Well, and to be fair, the fact that he got, how many podiums was it? At least one podium with Foyt. I know in St. Louis. Yeah. There might have been another one. I can't remember.
Credit to him and the team. They did great, but it was also kind of like a fuel strategy thing.
That's fair, but it was still a Foyt car, and it still finished up front. So you got to give him credit for that at least. I don't necessarily know that he's going to come out and win, but I think he will have a much better showing than he did with Foyt, and I think it'll be a much better way for him to go out to say goodbye to his fans.
So I think I saw a quote where he said, "Now's my time to win," or something. Like, I got to show up and put up results. So his sample size is going to be like, what, 4 or 5 races? Do you see him winning at all next year?
I think it will be difficult given the field, but I'm not going to say no for sure. I could definitely see a podium. And again, it very well could end up being a strategy race, but a lot of races are, unfortunately, strategy races. But I don't know. I can't count him out entirely.
Yeah, I think with the addition of Michael Kanaan as an engineer, overall will only help Tony Kanaan as he gets information from Scott Dixon and whatnot. So I don't think it's out of the question. Obviously, it's going to be very tough, but I don't think it's like saying Dalton Kellett is going to. Does Dalton Kellett stand a chance at winning a race if Dalton was in that car? Because I'd say probably not to that one.
No, the simple answer is no. And then, I think he will get a podium. I don't know about a win though. And then kind of on the other side of that story was NTT committing to sponsoring that car, or the car and more cars for Ganassi this year. Did that kind of surprise you, given their foothold they now have as far as a corporate level within IndyCar, that they're going to continue to sponsor a Ganassi entry?
No, but so there's one thing that caught me off guard. I guess 2 things that caught me off guard. They said, we're going to sponsor IndyCar again in 2021, like as a whole, the NTT IndyCar series. I didn't even know that was up for
no.
renewal.
Yeah,
right. I don't know how that didn't. I feel like nobody really talked about that in the news when it came out, either late last week or early this week. I don't remember what day it was, but the NTT sponsoring the car thing that caught me off guard was they said we are going to sponsor Pelot's car for select races, where the last however many years it's been all season, and now it's, we're going to be at the season opener and a handful of other races, but they didn't say full season on Pelot's car, which kind of caught me off guard. I could have easily read that wrong, but that's the way I took it.
They didn't do a full season with Rosenquist either. He had the monster car a couple races.
Oh yeah.
So I
Oh,
don't.
and he had Clover that one race.
Yeah,
one
so I
year.
don't know that maybe
Yeah.
and because the article didn't specify, maybe they're not doing as many as they previously did, but I just kind of took it as it was basically going to be roughly the same, that there'd be, a few races that they weren't at, but the majority of it's going to be them. But maybe I read it. Yeah. But since it didn't have specific details, it's kind of a guessing game until we get a little bit closer to the season and they get everything kind of lined up, I guess.
Yeah, I think, excuse me, the thing that Mike said about the title sponsorship is kind of one of those like, what? Because what did Verizon have? Verizon had, what did it end up being? Like a 7-year deal with a 3-year option or something like that? 5-year deal with a 3-year option? Something along those lines?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 5 with 3.
So I hope this AT&T title sponsorship deal isn't on a year-by-year basis because, businesses are having a tough go with the pandemic. Their bottom line takes a hit next year for this or that reason, and have to take a long look at their finances. I don't see their involvement in IndyCar kind of being one of those first things to go. So hopefully it's not a year-by-year basis. Hopefully Mark Miles and company was able to lock that into a long-term deal. So I guess that might be a question we may have to ask around about and see if we can get some more info on that.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I know this is kind of like long-term thinking, how NASCAR kind of splits up their sponsorship packages into sections of the season now, where it's not, the Nextel Cup or Sprint Cup or whatever. It's just NASCAR Cup Series, and there's kind of regional based sponsorships and whatnot. And so different ways they're activating instead of a whole season. I wonder if maybe IndyCar could go down that road in the future, almost like how Ray Hall has a million sponsors that he rotates through every year, where IndyCar could do something like that on a larger level. I know that's impossible to predict, but I know that some people in IndyCar have been advocating that actually for a couple years.
To be fair, the initial deal was done so fast for the title sponsorship that it could be a thing where they only did it for a year at first to see how things played out. Because, that's a big commitment for them and also for IndyCar. So maybe it was just let's let things play out and see how it goes, and then we'll re-up. Since we don't really know the specifics of the initial deal, it's kind of hard to say that this wasn't, I guess, expected.
Don't leave.
Please don't leave.
That's my
We
thought.
like you.
I'm going to go off script here because we did have a fan question related to Tony Kanaan. Came in anonymously to one of us. Says, Kanaan was the obvious choice for the 48 car for the oval races, but do you think he's the best fit for a chance at winning for Chip Ganassi Racing?
Oh, gosh. For the whole team? No, because there's still Scott Dixon. But I think if we're going to look at the rest of the drivers that don't include Scott Dixon, I would say probably yes. I don't know that it's going to happen right off the bat, but I don't know. I think if we eliminated Scott Dixon because he's just like on his own level over here, like in a pedestal, I think maybe.
Scott Dixon has his own pedestal section.
Yes, and it's in the United States if you ask host Mike.
Can't go one episode without bringing that up. That's fantastic.
I was going to say, is it in Target? I was going to bring it back to a sponsorship, but
Nope.
You guys can screw off. Bah humbug, Thanksgiving joy to you guys. So I guess the only other option that was really talked about was Oliver Askew. And if we're talking about immediate results, I don't think Askew would provide the chance at a, let's say, Indy 500 podium / win that Kanaan would in the 48 car. Maybe in a couple of years, if Askew is able to get some more experience, yeah, he might be a better fit. But now, in the here and now, I think Kanaan is probably the best fit for that puzzle piece.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at drivers who would be kind of quote unquote without a paddle upstream, and I think Kanaan, Askew, who else is out there? I mean, if we're going like really out of left field, like Kyle Kaiser, who knows where he's at right now. Just drivers like that who've been involved with IndyCar but don't really have, a long-term setup in mind. So of who's available, I mean, yes, I think Kanaan's the kind of easy short-term solution. His 2-year deal coincides with Johnson's 2-year deal. And then after that, maybe Chip decides to keep his entry around and maybe looks for an Askew or something. So I think, within that team, I definitely put him above Palou and Ericsson. I think he can go toe to toe with Dixon, but I'm still going to pick Dixon 10 times out of 10 on ovals.
Yeah, that's fair. Some team pit lane shout outs here. Let me pull up my list. Let's give a shout out to our buddy Matthew Groenholz. Let's go with Colin Taylor. And last but not least, a shout out to Keith Tyron. And thank you to everybody who continues to subscribe and support the show this year. I'm going to jump into a fan question here from Ryan Robb, who is new to our PlayStation F1 Pit Lane Parlay League this year. Is there any chance we see a driver like Aaron Telitz, who's been in IMSA the last 2 years, make an IndyCar start?
Short answer, sure. But he's probably going to have to bring some funding, and not a little bit, probably quite a bit of funding. But I don't see anyone just automatically turning him down. I definitely think if he had funding, he would get a test, and if he did well, he could get a ride. I think that kind of, unfortunately, a lot of people, that's their way they're going to have to get in, is to bring some sponsorships.
Yeah, I think it's not out of the question, and I think his relationship with Vassar Sullivan helps. I just don't know if they'd be willing to throw him into the IndyCar, but it's one of those things where I hope maybe just like a one-off at Road America, I think would be phenomenal, and I think a lot of the local fans would really love and appreciate that. I see a lot of the Aaron Telitz spotted cow shirts around when I'm at Road America, so he definitely has.
I have one.
You do?
I do.
Your t-shirt collection is rad. You got that. You got a Rich Energy t-shirt. You had a Marco Andretti Venom t-shirt at one point.
I did.
I'm sure you have a t-shirt with Grady's face on it.
I do.
That was a complete shot.
I have a t-shirt with Grady and the Philly Fanatic in the scene from Pulp Fiction where they're holding up their weapons, and it's pretty amazing.
Somehow that doesn't shock me. I mean, just it should, but it just doesn't actually.
I saw a really cool Gritty tattoo on Instagram.
Please don't.
I'm not going to. That's a level of dedication that I don't think even I can commit to. Anyway, so now that we've talked Aaron Telitz, and I hope so. I would love to see Aaron get a chance in IndyCar because he definitely would be one of those fan favorites. Some Indy Lights news. Kyle Kirkwood and Daniel Frost will be at Andretti Autosport Indy Lights this year, where they were supposed to be last year. Great to see Kyle still be able to use his scholarship money. And then the other good news is our friends at HMD Motorsports and Global Racing Group are teaming up for a 4-car program. So that would be 2 with HMD and 2 with Global Racing Group for 2021. I imagine it's pretty much like how Meyer Shank Racing. I just drew a blank on our other friends' names. This is Matt making fun of Elio and me forgetting the team name is really not making a good impression the last couple of weeks.
What? I didn't say Elio was going to be like Shank's tax man or anything.
Well, then you did.
Yeah. Well, just keep digging that grave a little bit deeper for us.
What are you talking about? We love them. They love us.
Anyway, so it's really cool to see the Indy Lights grid expand by at least 2. I think we should see somewhere in the range of 12 to 14 Indy Lights cars this year. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on anything I just mentioned on Indy Lights. Or not
Elio?
So exciting.
Is it about Elio or Indy Lights?
Indy Lights, not Elio. We don't need to talk about Elio.
Oh, Jess,
You're already getting us in enough trouble.
No, wait. I'm a supporter of Elio Castroneves now because I do have a T-shirt in my possession, waiting for our drunk episode. It's a size small.
This is gonna be
which
fun.
is unfortunately 2 sizes too small for me. But if you want to listen to our Liquid Courage episode that we do every year, that's our fancy way of saying our alcohol-induced episode. Subscribe to our Team Pit Lane member system, and you'll get access to that episode. And we do that every year. I'm assuming we'll have the light show back on with us this year, if he's free and doesn't end up on the roof of a house again. This is what you can kind of expect with our episodes. Yeah. What'd you have, Mike?
If you go to our website and click on support the show, there's a link right there for you.
Perfect.
I made it easy for you to support us.
I'm so proud of you. Look, he's blushing. I think with Indy Lights, 12 to 14, I think, is on the fringe of what I would consider the low end. So at that point, I think 12 to 14, it becomes quote unquote acceptable for Indy Lights to field that many cars. In perfect world, 16 to 17. But I'm definitely not going to complain if we have 12 to 14, which is a significant improvement from what we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. I think that first year with the new chassis was really the last year, maybe the first 2 years with the new chassis was kind of the last years of having a decent field. And ever since then, it's been atrocious. So definitely positive signs for Indy Lights next year, despite the No Freedom 100.
Yeah, clearly going in the correct direction. But now we need to decide, is it HMD plus GRG or GRG plus HMD? Because OMG, that's a lot of letters, guys.
The HMD GRG PLP experience.
Which is confirmed for 2021.
I legitimately don't know if I can say that every week, though.
Would you rather say that or the Marco Andretti with Andretti Autosports with Curb Agajanian with Ludacris with Andretti Wines and karting
whatever
and
else.
Craft Singles Express?
Ooh, Craft Singles, what?
Yeah, you got a new sponsorship.
Can't go 1 week without mentioning that one either.
No. Also, by the way, before I forget, it says become a member on the website, not support the show. I can't believe I butchered that one. You can pitfall me.
Take your blushing back. You can't.
Well, hopefully we'll get all the letters sorted out before the season starts. And I'm going to write it on my hand before every episode so that I get it in the correct order. But yes, definitely positive. Really glad to see Indy Lights kind of take back off because it was a lot of fun back when there was quite a few cars in the field, and it produced some really good races. So hopefully we will get back to that point. May take a year or two to get there, but can't complain at all.
All right. One last fan question here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it Hast Mike the Fourth?
Close.
Host. Oh, I'm sorry. Host Mike the Fourth. Host Mike the Fourth. Thanks for listening. We appreciate all your support. Wants to know who is under more pressure to perform in 2021 at Penske, Will Power or Simon Pagenaud?
Jess, do you want to take the lead on this one? Because I legitimately...
I'll do it. I'll take it.
I don't...
I'm going to flip a coin, and that's going to be... no, honestly, if I had to go off of this season, only this season, not anything outside of this season, it would be Will Power. He did well sometimes and struggled sometimes. I think that his showing of frustration at the last race of the season was very telltale of how his whole season went. Obviously, he was completely dejected, and I think it was more with himself for making the mistake than anything else. But I would say if I only went on this season, that Will Power would be the one that has to worry a little bit more.
It's a fair argument. I would say Pagenaud because he finished lower in the standings. And for the most part last year, really just wasn't as competitive, especially in qualifying. And if you take away his Iowa win where he started last and finished first, his season was pretty unremarkable as a whole. I mean, that one race defined his season right there. And I know he had two other podiums other than that and a couple top fives, but really kind of like when you look at where he finished in some of the other races, pretty all around disappointing. So the pressure is definitely on Simon this year or next year or both.
I think the emphasis there is for sure on the word pressure. Let me preface this by saying that I do believe both drivers will be driving an IndyCar in 2022. With that being said, Will Power is more likely to be able to leave Team Penske on his own accord after this season and find a good seat somewhere else. I think Simon Pagenaud is on the fringe of being relegated to a place where he may need to bring sponsorship dollars with him. So with Power, I could totally see him going to like an Arrow McLaren in 2022. And with Pagenaud, he may be relegated to like an Ed Carpenter or a Coin or something along those lines, just because his performances as of late don't merit going to a fully funded seat. So to the answer to that question, therefore, I would say that Simon Pagenaud is definitely under more pressure, because Mike is 100% correct that his last season here was really unremarkable, and I think that's putting it lightly.
I'm just celebrating the fact that you said I was 100% right. Like, I feel like it's almost as good as your significant other saying you are 100% right, because that doesn't happen either.
I got you, buddy.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, guys, it's Thanksgiving week. And so instead of doing our normal pitfalls, we have kind of made a tradition of saying thank you. So instead of pitfalls this week, who would like to go first?
I'll go first. It's been a weird year, if we're being honest. It's been a difficult year to try and find some positives, because a lot has gone wrong in the world. The three of us can probably find our own things to kind of have grievances with some of the things that's happened this year, either personally or whatnot. I definitely am taking a lot of lessons from this year, and when we do go back to quote unquote normal, not taking the little things for granted. So for right now, focusing on what we do have around us, like, having my wife, family, our dog, a lot of our close friends who have really kept me sane. Jess and Mike have helped keep me sane. A lot of people on Twitter who are there to converse with and everything. It's been amazing. So I just can't thank the two of you enough, everybody in my support system here, that we've all tried to keep each other grounded and on the same page and try to keep our spirits up. But it's definitely been a weird year, but I just want everybody out there who may be going through a difficult time right now to know that you're not alone. And if you do need to reach out to one of us three to talk about anything, or to try to lift your spirits up, or kind of get a new perspective on some of the positives of this year, just feel free to reach out to us, because it's been a trying year for everybody. But just know that we appreciate your support, and we are super thankful to have this platform to share our passions about racing and kind of the happier things in life.
Adding on to that, I want to give a shout out to Jess for not having a busy Thanksgiving plan, so offering to make meals for people or help people out. Let me try to find the clap button here. Let me make sure I get the right one.
Don't do big fat F.
Yeah, which is really cool. So I'm going to keep mine short, because Matt kind of hit most of the points that I wanted to hit. So no, it's okay. That's fine. I kind of figured that much. So yeah, extra shout out to Jess on that one.
I appreciate that. I did actually take that idea from a friend of mine because I thought it was fantastic. And I wanted to pay it forward too, because yeah, like you said, we've all had an awful 2020 and some of us have had a slightly better year than others. I would say we all have things that aren't great, to put it mildly. And I've been lucky this year, where some have not. So that offer still stands. You can inbox me if you're in the Indy area. I'd be happy to bring you some soup. That's what I'm making. So yeah, if you need a meal, absolutely hit me up. But also, I want to thank not only you two, but I want to thank your spouses as well, because they have to put up, first of all, with you two. And second of all, with our insane schedule. It has been all over the place. Yeah, this year has been crazy for everyone. And they've obviously had to be flexible. You two have to be flexible with me because I work nights and it's different. So thank you for that. And also our fans who listen every week, because obviously if you guys didn't listen, we would just be screaming into thin air. So we appreciate everyone who listens. Well,
I do that too.
Like, I wasn't going to say that though. Like, I'm trying to keep us semi-normal here. And oddly enough, I do, on the same note of our crazy schedules, and he will probably literally never hear this, but I want to thank my boss, because I must have turned in 55 different sheets for my schedule this year due to racing changing all the time. And he approved me every single time I wanted to change my schedule. So I can't thank everybody for being flexible, and yeah, working with us. And like you said, if anybody out there has any kind of issues they want to talk about, you don't want to talk to your friends or your family, and you feel comfortable, absolutely come to us. My DMs are always open to anybody who wants to chat.
Same.
Yeah, special shout out to everybody who supports the show and listens to the show and sends us kind messages. And this year was weird, where I would get notice of, okay, you are allowed to cover the race in person 72 hours before I would need to travel. Or I think for the Harvest Grand Prix, I knew at least 10 days in advance. So, and I would just walk into the other room and tell Meg, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going away tomorrow. And she would go, okay. So it made it much easier to have a spouse who is extremely understanding and flexible through the insanity of this year.
Yeah, I agree. Sammy definitely puts up with some of my nonsense. I think she's watching a show on Netflix right now waiting for me to get off. But yeah,
Same.
and then I think we did this last year too, where it's like we keep one-upping each other with more shout-outs. But I do want to give a shout-out to Jess, because that Thanksgiving idea is awesome, and that just is a great reflection on you as a person. And I think not a lot of people in our society nowadays would go above and beyond like that. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, instead of trying to one-up you, I think we can wrap it up for the week there. Thank you, everybody, for listening. F1 is on this weekend, so tune in. I think that's just about the only racing left this year, unless there's some MotoGP I'm missing or something along those lines. But unless anybody has anything else, Jess, go ahead and sign it off.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight. Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space, so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co.